Hey everybody, welcome to Luxe Life with Candice Bar. I'm your host, Candice Bar, and I am so excited for today. You know, I'm usually excited for our guests. We have really awesome, amazing people as guests on the show, but I'm so excited to have, I call her Miss Paula D. So, Miss Paula, welcome to Luxe Life.
Hi. You know, one of the reasons I say Pixie is because they're like, you can't keep saying Paula D, right? So now I'm like, PP then, Pixie Paula.
I keep saying Paula. I say Paula D.
They say Paula D. And then I hear, because my name is, Pixie Paula Dezzutti, I hear P Dizzy, P Diddy. I'm like, wait, that one's taken too. I'm like, so yeah. I'm like, Pixie. Just don't call me Trixie.
Miss Pixie Paula. Yeah, when I talk like to our assistants and stuff about you, I say Paula. I say Paula D. Paula D. Paula D. Well, you're Miss Paula D to me, but welcome to Luxe Life.
Thank you.
We're so excited to have you. So I have to introduce you. You know, you guys need to know this. So everyone listening and watching, Miss Paula she's our newer show on Luxe Media, which we're so excited. Her first show is recording tomorrow, I believe. And then she's our new PR client, and she's what the reason why we started any of the company, any of the business. She is what it's all about. She is a female entrepreneur. She's a serial entrepreneur. She's a mother of several children. She does a lot, and she's been doing it. She's been the forefront of female entrepreneurship for quite some time. I mean, her resume is amazing. And so I want to welcome you to Luxe Media officially. Welcome the media for your podcast, and also the PR. And just, I'm so excited to have you and be connected with you.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel humbled and I'm honored. I'm really excited at what this journey is going to look like. Absolutely. And I know it's going to be night and day between now and 6 months, and then between now and next year. And I'm like, you just like hold on to the carpet, right?
Well, let everyone know what you do, because you do a lot and you're really a Jill of all trades here.
Oh my gosh. That's like a question that nobody says to me. What do you do? Except for on, those dating sites. And then I'm like, what do I do?
Like, where do I begin?
Yeah. Oh, well, I'll tell you. I know what my purpose is on the planet. My purpose is unconditional love and possibility. And that overflows into everything that I open up. It's definitely a driver. I want to make measurable impact in all the industries that I'm in. And it just so happened that I got moved into traditionally male-dominated roles from a very, very young age. I started my first business when I was 9 years old, and I have 12 corporations right now. But I work in drugs, sex, and alcohol. And what does that mean? I'm like, okay, I own a couple of distilleries and over several, almost 50 brands in the distilled spirit space, and wines and beer. All kinds of beverage, but traditionally alcoholic beverages, and making measurable impact in what I think could potentially be viewed as a vice industry. So that's one way that I concentrate my day. Another is real estate, because at the end of the day, even when you're selling goods and services, it's really all about a real estate play. And that is, how do you get the shelf space, whether it's through e-commerce or brick and mortar, to sell your product to a consumer? So that's a real estate play, even if it's digital real estate. And then Skirt Magazine, which is the love of my life, is about women empowerment. We just celebrated our 28th year as the first women's empowerment magazine on the East Coast. And actually, if you think about this, 30 years ago, there were not very many women's empowerment magazines out in the world.
That's right.
In the world. Yep. And then cannabis. So I own a leading cannabinoid company in the state of South Carolina, Sycamore Biopharma. And we are a technology-driven wellness company that is committed to innovation in the practical application of using natural drugs for preventative disease and for cures.
Yes, Ms. Paula, yes.
And then within all of those divisions, there are divisions.
And how many children do you have?
Okay, no, like several means we would think 7. What's the word for 9?
9.
Yes, I gave birth to 9 children. Next question is one at a time.
So I hate it when people ask about balance, because I don't believe in the word. It's not a real word. How do you do all of these things?
It's really about choice. And there is, when you don't fall into the illusion of the scarcity of time, you really have enough time to do anything that you want to. And let's face it, work will always evolve into the amount of space and time that you give it the presence to manage. So you could work all day if you give it that space, or you could work within an hour if you give it that space. So I like to look at an approach that's getting the big things and the big chunks out of the way first, and then letting the little things kind of filter down. So if you had a big barrel and you filled it with tiny little rocks first, you're never going to have room for the big rocks. But if you started by putting the boulders in, then the little smaller pebbles, and then the grains of sand, it all trickles down and there's enough to be able to get it in. So start with the big boulders first. I used to have a to-do list all the time. I was committed to my to-do list, and I'm an achiever. So as I was manifesting more and more work to do, I was never getting any satisfaction in the work that I was completing, because my to-do list got longer every single day. Right. And I worked with a shaman a couple of years ago. You know, I practice a lot of metaphysics, and I do automatic writing, and I read tea leaves. It's kind of, and I do angel card reading. So as I'm really studying the world of metaphysics, my shaman said to me, throw away your to-do list. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, I won't know what to do. And she was like, precisely. And if you don't have a to-do list, and I reframe the way that I think about things. So now, instead of saying, I was so hard on myself, I didn't finish my to-do list. I'm behind this week. I'm behind this month. I reframe that into, without a to-do list, like, oh, I got more done this week than I thought I was going to get done. But heck, I completed way more this year than I ever could have imagined. So it's just reframing how you look at that illusion of time.
Yeah. You know, that's another thing about you that I really love, because, you know, we're in a position where, like, I really do kind of handpick the PR clients, right? And I also too, I would consider myself very spiritual. I do all the things, and, you know, my little practice and all this stuff. And I've been doing that for years. And that's something that really drew me to you as well. Actually, you and I were connected between a mutual friend or acquaintance, and she was telling me about you. And I was like, I knew she was contacting me to connect us, but I was like, I need to know who this woman is, because I love other women that combine spirituality, metaphysics with business practice, with businesses. I mean, entrepreneurship, it does all go together, whether people talk about it or not.
Absolutely. And the metaphor for me, especially being in the spirits business, I'm like, come on. I started studying metaphysics, like I could hear the voice of God by the time I was 2 years old. And so I spent my entire life, and now I'm like, really? I'm the queen of spirits? It's kind of funny.
I love it. I want to go back to a moment and talk about, you know, you are a mother, like we said, and do run several businesses. And so I wanted to point that out because of this. You know, I think a lot of females think I have to do one or the other, because if I do too many things, I won't be able to do them well. And clearly you're showing that it can be done. It can be done well. What
So advice for time balance, I want to follow up on the time balance. One of the advantages of having your own business is you do control your time and your calendar, right?
That's right.
And then who's going to fire you if you change your mind? You might lose clients, or you might piss people off, but you're still in control. And so having multiple businesses that support peripherally the reinforcement of every other business is the key. If you have totally diverse businesses, which I don't, every one of my businesses directly interferes and relates to the same amount of time. So if I'm selling spirits or cannabis or media space, it's all being pitched to the same supplier, the same broker, the same distributor who's going to buy these items anyway. So now I'm leveraging one phone call into 3 or 4 or 12 companies. Smart. And that's why I have so many companies, is the need to structure a deal arose out of those mutual conversations, but I had to filter it into another organization because there's some crossover. So they're not diverse. They all support each other, and the integration is what gives me the success rate that I have, and I'm not wasting my time. I'm leveraging my time. The other thing that I do is if I'm going to be active in a business, I look at the economics to see if I own the business versus being a customer of that business, what do my margins and my markup look like? And then even if I don't want to outright own the business, I might create a joint venture opportunity where, again, I'm getting fed on both ends. So that reinforces the strength and the development and the control, because you can't manage what you don't control and you can't control what you don't manage. So that's
right.
just part of the philosophy that I've used.
I want to ask you, because you do own several companies, how important is it for you having a solid team or having those people that you trust around you to make things run smoothly?
It does mean everything. Look, we're a family run business. So 6 of my kids are running operations with me on a day-to-day business. We have several outside people and a lot of collaborations and JVs, but the people that I trust they're my own team. They're my flesh and blood. This is their future. This is their inheritance. Right. That brings a lot of challenges along with it, because they don't necessarily ever divest mom from CEO. So it's definitely challenging. However, I wouldn't trade it. I haven't traded it for the world. When they were all in high school, actually, even before, when I was just solely practicing my financial planning and tax and real estate practice, they would come around with me. I mean, I'm homeschooled at points of time so that I could be able to travel and let them come with me. So they've been doing this a long time. They're pretty seasoned, and I don't know that any of them could go off to earn a W-2, given they were my children.
I feel like once you're an entrepreneur, like once you touch your toe in the entrepreneur pool, it's pretty hard, if not impossible, to be an employee.
I think so too.
Yeah. Like I know that I'm unemployable. I know that for a fact.
Yeah. I keep thinking like, maybe I should get a job. Like, I could see it maybe in retirement where I would be forced into a role that I couldn't do consulting. I'd be forced to get into somebody's other structure, right? So don't even get me started. The whole W-2 structure thing is like, it's just, again, a lot of these things are for really use of control. And the world is changing so rapidly. Our technology is changing. Thank you, COVID. I mean, now it's projected that 50% of the workforce will continue to work from home moving forward. So we've definitely redesigned a more empowered community and workforce because of the pandemic.
I want to ask you, you were, like I said, you were kind of in the forefront of female entrepreneurship. You've been in it for a very long time. And so I can imagine you've had some hurdles throughout your career.
Absolutely.
Especially being a female in very male-dominated industries.
Yes. When I started my early 20s, I bought and sold my first property when I was 18 years old. Wow. And I had money ready to invest in the stock market before I was old enough to invest. I was counting down the days for me to be old enough to make an investment in the stock market. Wow. Turned out to be right before the crash of 87. So that wasn't so great, but I understood how to manage and outride the flow. So I became an investor early in life. I then bought and sold my first property when I was 18. And that got me on the real estate bug and really understanding how to manage that flow and learn. And then the more businesses I created, and especially because I owned a tax practice from a very young age, I could see how all these other corporations and businesses, LLCs, sole proprietorships, were operating and running. And I got a greater understanding and appreciation for how businesses can really integrate and support each other and what each of them were missing. So I got a real life lesson by looking at volumes of cases. That was hard when I stepped into Wall Street, because here I was, this young girl in the 20s, and you're talking 4 decades ago here, right? The world was like, well, what does she know? Dressed up in her little red suit with her little hair and her, big green glasses and all the things, saying, okay, you should invest in this, 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 and this. And it was really challenging, especially for the women who felt intimidated by the fact that there's this young, hot woman coming into their living room, and I have a lot of energy, saying what should happen and what should be done. And I learned quickly, because I got the cold shoulder from those women, that, wow, they were not having it as easy as I was. They were behind the scenes in the direction of their finances. And unfortunately, in all those decades, the statistics haven't changed. So I quickly turned my practice into saying to the husband, hush, you're not here. We're going to pretend you are dead, disabled, retired, or divorced. And now let's focus on what do these women need. So I've spent my career talking about the fact that 90% of women will at one point be 100% alone. Are you 100% financially ready? And as I've aged, I've moved into making sure they're emotionally, physically, spiritually ready as well.
Yes. And I know I want to touch on, how were you, that's how kind of how you perceived by the females, but how were you welcomed in by the men, especially working on Wall Street in the 80s?
No, you're not. And you're still not. I mean, the only advantage, here's the flat out advantage. There's never a waiting line for the bathroom anywhere I go. Usually there's a line of men and I just walk right into the women's room because there's just no women in the room. When I'm doing my crypto conferences, NFT conferences, usually I'm the only person in the room that's a woman besides the girl handing out sandwiches. And so that'll happen first. They'll be like, oh, where's the coffee? I'm like, I don't know. I walked in late, like always. I'm like, so you do get that perception still of you're the girl, you must be here to serve.
Right. Have you seen any changes throughout the years with, male, female, especially female entrepreneurship now?
Definitely. And also culturally and geographically, there are more advanced changes. We just celebrated having the 100-year right to vote. And that's not even for everybody. That was for the super privileged in certain areas in certain countries. So it's not even an adopted law, right? State by state still has the right, whether they're going to endorse the right to vote, which most women don't even know. It's not even been ratified into the Constitution. We don't really have the right to vote, ladies. We don't. This is it's been a granted extension for us to show up at the polls. But it can be revoked at any time. And so these things are so serious and important. And the younger people do not know this because they're not taught these things in our history books. They're very little. But I am encouraged by the fact that younger women are not tolerating or have more boundaries and have a louder voice without fear of repercussion. And so I do feel that handing the baton over and that changing of the guard is occurring. They can't let their foot off the pedal for any moment. I'm telling you.
That's right.
And I argue with my girls now. They're like, do something over so many issues. I believe the whole Wade versus Roe, it's like, we don't have all these rights that we think that we should naturally have, common sense have, right? So it's not changed very much, but I am encouraged that the younger group they are financially more adept at being able to manage their own lives. They are educated from the perspective of experience. I don't even mean a school book education. There's no excuse for no education anymore because the internet, you can learn anything that you want to. And so if you're a go-getter and you do the research, you're going to have understandings of terms and opportunities out in the marketplace. And if you put your foot down and don't let any of those boundaries get crossed, then we will eventually create a group of individuals, younger men, I'll say, that don't even have a conscious thought about mistreating a woman.
That's
because
right.
it won't be accepted. So
it's not tolerated.
Mm-hmm.
The second something isn't tolerated, it doesn't happen. Period.
Yes. My dream is for the conversation not to even come up.
1,000%. Yes. I want to switch gears a little bit. Every entrepreneur I know has had at least minimum one mentor in their life, whether that person knew that they were a mentor to them or not. Who has been the most significant person in your life or mentor in your life that has helped you get where you are today?
So there's so many.
Yeah.
Clearly, from a young age, I would say that my father was completely influential. He passed away now, but a very unusual, atypical human being. And his story is is just amazing. For quick synopsis, he was abandoned and lived under the floorboards of stores to be able to come up at night and steal food to keep himself alive. And then literally went from foster care to foster care, never had more than a 6th grade education, but ended up being a big GM, almost executive director, with an early handshake that he could take the very little bit of money that he had, that we had. I grew up in poverty and never even, I thought I was rich. That's how amazing this person was. And then gave my mom and my brother and my sister an amazing life. So to come from that and such adversity and to triumph, when he passed away, at his funeral, over 1,000 people showed up, and everyone whispered to me on the way out, "Your father was my best friend." And I'm thinking, how could so many people he ingratiated and brought into his life from that perspective? And I thought, like, there's a goal to live for. I want everybody to think I loved them so much that there was this intimate bond between us. So he taught me that at a very young age.
I love that.
My metaphysics. So and also my grandmother, they were instead of reading me fairy tales, they were reading me Edgar Cayce stories and In the Light stories, and sharing things about metaphysics with me without shutting me down. So I was excited and supported in that way. And then, of course, teachers over the year, and also my mentors through my times at American Express. Stephen Covey was a great influencer in my life, and there's just so many people.
I love that. Let's switch gears for a second. We've talked about this before, and I've talked about it with other entrepreneurs on the show, and it's definitely a topic that needs to be talked about. Female entrepreneurs being powerhouses in the dating world.
Yeah. One of the reasons I love Skirt Magazine, I get to do Under the Skirt and Don't Skirt the Issue and talk about all these controversial topics that need to be discussed.
Yeah.
You know,
it's a real thing. It's a real issue. And thousands, I mean, I've had so many same conversations over and over again. Nobody talks about this. They're like, yeah, become successful, run your business, do all the stuff. We do all that. You check it off. And then dating for us is much different than dating for another person.
Absolutely. And I've had to really adjust what I'm trying to get out of companionship in the universe. I have been single for 3.5 years, and I have gone through the gamut. And boy, what a roller coaster cycle my own emotions have been on because of it. And what did I tell you? I'm here for unconditional love and possibility. Yeah. So for me, that's like my driving force. 9 children. I want to love and serve everybody. And so to not have that outlet, I feel like I'm not loving one man at this point. I'm loving mankind. And then what do I do to every good entrepreneur pivots? So of course I started a vibrator line. So my new vibrator line is coming out. That's one way to manage the dating world. Yes. I'm totally serious. It's true. But it is interesting. The guys, in my experience, this is, I don't want to overgeneralize. I've met so many people and wonderful, wonderful friends from first dates. I rarely have second dates. And usually men will move themselves out of the category of being able to even develop a relationship with me, because they say, oh, I hear this, I'm out of your league, or I was just here for the popcorn, or, this is never going to work. Or maybe they just say, not what I was expecting. Still, if you read the dating profiles of men, they all say they want an independent woman who has all their own crap going on, right?
They don't know what that means.
They have no clue, because then you show up and you're all that, and they're like, oh no.
This is. I think that's the most honest statement. Like I can't handle you. You're too much for me. But I don't need to be handled.
My husband, as I call him, like, that was the thing. Like, my hands are big enough to handle you. And then I was like, what happened to that? But it's true. So even they do think you need to be handled or managed.
Here's the thing, like, they want it in theory, but then when you get it, is the word was it demasculate? You
emasculate. Yeah, to emasculate.
Emasculate. Thank you.
Yeah.
So they, in theory, it sounds good, but when you actually have to, deal with it, handle it, whatever, be with it, partner with it, they can't do it.
Oh my gosh. I've heard in board meetings, people say to me, oh, you emasculated that one just like your dog. I mean, I hear like the craziest things. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a strong voice and you step up and you want to say something, if it's either hush or can you bring me a coffee? I mean, so many men will just try to level you, right? And reduce you to being less than by that manipulation or those gaslighting techniques where they're just trying to reduce you to some space. So having the ability to just hold your own, and I try to kill everyone with kindness. So I will turn things around, but oh my gosh, the things that I have to hear.
I'm hoping as we're talking, and we're talking about, more and more female entrepreneurs are coming up, and then, a new generation of female entrepreneurs, which is fabulous. I'm hoping with that, these girls coming up, there's a new way of teaching men how to date and or be with these female entrepreneur females because clearly, like in our generation, like it wasn't enough of us, so they weren't taught how to be with us.
There's still not enough of a pathway in power and leadership to really set the tone. I just read a statistic that said something like out of the top Fortune 500 companies worldwide, still like only 2% have women leadership. So it's just so low, right? So the culture, until that really turns over, there's still going to be this stigma about being a woman in power. And until, I think that as younger men are having girls and they're reacting differently because most now have dual income households or stay-at-home dads, right? Because moms are key breadwinner. So they are interacting with their daughters differently than men of the past.
Yes.
And they fall in love with them and they have a very different bond and relationship in today's fatherhood experience from my observations. I think that is what's going to happen, is that those fathers are going to be so protective of their daughters who are rising entrepreneurs, rising leaders, rising corporate directors, that they will say to their own daughters, get out there and kick some ass.
Yes.
Right? We didn't have that. We were told, father's the head of the whole household, know your place.
Yeah, it's a different world. And as we're talking about, I'm hoping, and I can foresee that happening with female entrepreneurship, with female empowerment. There has to be male support.
Yes. We need to get a woman president. We just need that.
I know who I want. I know who I want.
I got asked yesterday by the governor to run. I was like, wait, my campaign would be Pixie for president?
Yeah. Why not?
I can't do morning appointments. It would be a disaster. There's no way.
I want to ask you, Paula, what is I'm sure you've got a lot of it. What is some of the best pieces of advice you've ever gotten that you still kind of keep in the forefront of your mind?
Well, there are so many. I would say maybe I look at it at the greatest lessons learned. So that was the advice is through the learning of that lesson. I think that I struggled a lot as an entrepreneur. Let me say it this way. I'm learning the biggest lesson of my life right now, today, in this very moment. And that is about not letting the past not just define you, because we always say, we all know that the adage is like, don't look at the past, look at the future, all that stuff. But as a manifester, a creator, an entrepreneur, we're used to projecting our thoughts, and those thoughts become things, right? I say to my kids now, remember what you're thinking, because your mind is a 3D printer. As soon as you call it out, it's going over to the digital Bluetooth and it is getting 3D printed out into the universe.
That's right.
So the hard lesson is, as an entrepreneur who's constantly thinking, you get very attached to your thoughts and what you put out into the universe. And you want those things to materialize, and you know the skills and the tools to make them materialize.
Yes.
And when they don't, it's really hard for entrepreneurs because they have the discipline and the skill set to think these things into reality and fruition. And so it's not being willing to let go of the past, but that past is the equivalent of my future because I projected that and I thought through that process and I was trying to make that materialize. And it's hard to separate the two and be willing to completely surrender and practice non-resistance. So it's okay to hold on to the thought process, but you now have to interject non-resistance. And I, as an entrepreneur, felt like, oh, I'm failing. And if I give up the ship or I give up too fast or too easy, then I'm not practicing what I preach. I've got to focus on my thoughts becoming my reality. And now I've interjected with, somehow in there, I got to have non-resistance.
And sometimes it's not, some people use the word control. I don't know if it's a control thing, but sometimes as great manifestors, as creators, as people who typically get what they want, sometimes it's an art form to understand and know that sometimes you just have to let go. And when to let go.
But again, we're entrepreneurs. We're used to living into our future.
Yes.
So if all of a sudden the future you really thought you created, you are hit with a brick wall that this is not going to materialize, it's hard. So again, I say, stop telling me not to be attached to my past. I'm not attached to my past. I'm attached to my future. Right. And that future is not materializing the way I thought it was going to be. So like you just said, now I have to interject into that whole formulation, non-resistance.
Yeah. And it can be difficult.
Really hard.
Yeah, for sure. I know exactly what you're saying. That's an excellent answer. I do want to ask you, when days are not so easy, and I think as entrepreneurs, we make probably 1,500 decisions a day, at least. From the second we wake up to the second we go to sleep, we're making decisions all day long. When days are not so easy, when things are not, going our way, or it doesn't seem like it is, what keeps you motivated? What keeps you inspired? What keeps you going? Okay,
this is true lesson. When I said to you, and I know my purpose, I do talk a lot about the difference between passion and purpose. And if you can really, really capture that for yourself and get an internal understanding, you will never have trouble making decisions or moving forward in adversity. Because passion comes and goes, it flares and wanes. This time and day, everybody talks about do what you love and the money will follow your passions, live out your passions. I think it's been a big misnomer to young female entrepreneurs because it's just not the way of the world. It is not about the passion. Actually, passio is Latin for suffering. So passion really is about suffering through. Passion will come and go, flare and wane, disappear. You have to motivate yourself. You have to get passionate again. You have to get into good moves. No, it doesn't work. Know your purpose. If you know your purpose, then on a down day, on a challenging day, in the middle of adversity, if you can focus on, well, what's my real purpose on the planet? Then it doesn't matter how you're entertaining yourself or what you've brought into the world to design as, oh, this is who I am and this is how I operate and this is the business I'm running today. I go back to, I'm about love and possibility. How do I show up as love and possibility? My decisions become easy because I'm like, oh, wait, where's the love and possibility within this particular decision?
Yeah.
I just made a joke of this yesterday. I said, for all the decisions that I have to make, and right now I'm doing major mergers and acquisitions. So it's like the intensity of the stress that is on me. I'm getting into bed and I'm like feeling all of this weight.
I know exactly. Yes.
when it's self-imposed, I'm like, stress cannot be distressful if you're the one creating the stress. So you got
That's
to be
right.
able to put it in the right compartments. So I literally laughed and said, the hardest decision of my day takes me a good 10 minutes. And it's every morning when I wake up, I have to decide whether I should have tea or coffee. And I think I make $1 million decisions on an everyday basis. And I struggle with, is it a tea or a morning day? And I'm like, so I literally have to feel it out. And I'll go try to a cup of coffee and then go, no, this isn't feeling right. And I hit the teapot. Or I'll go make the teapot and go, no, I think I'm really running coffee. And I laugh at myself and I said, this is the most ridiculous thing. Choose tea or coffee. Craziness.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Well, I'm so excited you're with us. I want you to let everyone know where they can get your spirits, where they can get all your goods and products that are out right now, because I know a couple are coming out soon.
Yes.
Where can they go?
Well, if you can go online, which is localchoicespirits.com or the stripedpigdistillery.com. You could go to your local liquor store and ask them if they're carrying any of those products. The Striped Pig label has about 7 different varieties that are out there: vodka, rums, bourbons, gins, tequilas, moonshines. And we also have a few other labels, a few of them like Hatfield and McCoy whiskey, Gas Monkey cinnamon tequila, Forever Rye whiskey. We've got close to 50 brands, so I'm always getting confused. But if you go to the Total Wine and Spirits and ask for any local choice products, they could look it up, or they'll know where it is in their stores. We don't have every brand in every state, but we have brand representation in every state. And the states that are control states can even ask for those products. So I'm hoping, with your help, of course, by the end of next year, we'll have Striped Pig will be a household name, and you can find it in every retailer across America.
Fabulous. The one question I do ask everybody across the board on Luxe Life, I've had this show for several years now. There's one question I ask everybody. And that question is, when you were coming up, or when you started, seeing the fruits of your labor, what was something that you were able to get for yourself that you wanted when you were younger and you weren't able to get when you were younger? But when you were able to get this thing now, you took a moment and you pat yourself in the back and just said, I did a good job. I'm proud of myself.
So that's another thing that's happening right now. And I just said it yesterday to my broker, my realtor. I moved 3 times during COVID. So major life transitions, thought everything was falling out from under me. And yet I thrived. In the end, it turned out to be my greatest blessing. And so I ended up, because I had to move 3 times, and I was literally, I can't find a house. The real estate market's been crazy during COVID. I'm like, I'm going to be homeless. I'm going to be living out of hotels. You would go to look for a house and it was already under contract by the time you got in the front door. It's just been crazy. So I finally found a house a year ago, and I moved in, and I'm so deliriously happy where I am. And I'm like, oh, you got yourself back to the water, because I came from the water and waterfront, and I moved away for a long time. And I said, once I became single, I said, me, my lonesome, all by myself, is going to get myself back to the water. So now I'm sitting here watching the boats go by as we're having an interview, and I just love it. Fast forward. I just found out that one of my companies has been acquired, and I am going to have a liquidation event in about the next 2 weeks, which is going to be for a woman, one of the largest payouts that's going to come out in the marketplace. I'm working on the press release right now. And so I called my realtor. Are you ready for this? I said, 6 of my kids need houses. Let's cap it around $1 million. What a difference to go in for a house when you're scrounging about, can I come up with the money to be able to pay the mortgage, to be able to, get out of Section 8 housing. Now be looking at saying $1 million cap. Don't worry. I want to give my kids their inheritance now while I'm alive, to watch them enjoy it. And they have sacrificed their lives to be able to support me and work with me. And most of them have never owned a home. And they have children. And so to now be able to say to my kids, go pick your house.
I love it.
What a difference.
I mean, that's really what it's all for too. To be able to do, money is a tool to be able to do what you want, help who you want, create what you want. It's really a tool for expansion. So that's amazing. Yes. That's one of the best answers I've heard.
Telling you.
And so I want to say, I think I said it to you when I first talked to you on the phone, but I want to say, I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
And you're doing amazing. And thank you for always pushing through. Thank you for being at the forefront of female entrepreneurship, because we needed you. We still need you.
Yes. I want to say one more thing. This is not easy. This is not for the faint of heart.
That's right.
You can't give up. You have to be an Army drill sergeant with yourself, and you have to be willing to be part of the Army, the Coast Guard, the Marines, the Navy, all of it together, because that's what it takes if you want to get to the top of the line. This was not easy. There's a lot of sacrifice. I sacrificed getting anything for a very, very long time. You know, you would say eating hot dogs and macaroni and cheese, or what, that happened. Yep. So you don't get here overnight, but you do get here by staying in alignment and true to your cause, and never letting anybody tell you no.
Absolutely. 1,000,000%. 1,000,000%. Thank you, Paula, for taking the time to be with us.
I'm delighted. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. And we will see you all again next week. Bye, everybody.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient Nasset. Nasset increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.